So now that we've done that, I want to just walk through the file structure for you here. So kind of coming back over to the file manager. Now by default on almost all hosts, when you install WordPress on your primary domain, it goes into what is called your web server root. Now at the moment, when we just clicked on File Manager, it took us to the hosting account root. And what I want to draw your attention to is the fact that routinely people say, well, go to your root directory. When they say that, it has three potential meanings. If it's in just a very general context of working inside your hosting account, it can mean this right here, right? That is home1/byobboot. That is the root of my hosting account, and every single file, every piece of mail, everything I do in it is stored inside of that. Well, inside of that is the web server root. And the web server root is public HTML. Now this is the case in most hosts. It doesn't have to be the word public HTML, and some hosts don't even use that. But most hosts do. Public HTML is generally your web server root. And so anything that's going to show up on your web site and be processed by the web server has to be inside of this web server root. Now, and so in this case, we have this Bluehost thing, CGI bin, which has nothing to do with us and we don't care about. Could be deleted if we wish it to. We have the two WordPress installations that we created, that is the Genesis Crash Course and the Lesson 1. And then we have WordPress core files. Now, or WordPress folders and WordPress core files. WordPress folders are WP admin, WP content, and WP includes. And then you have a bunch of core files. Now, some of these are not core files, like this Mojo stuff and SS installer stuff. These are actually came along with the Mojo installation stuff. So it doesn't have anything to do with WordPress per se. But most of these files that didn't exist before are all specifically related to WordPress functioning and are considered part of your WordPress core files. Now, if we come over to Lesson 1, you'll see we have exactly the same set of files here, right? And same set of folders, WP admin, WP content, and WP includes. All of these files down here, these are all necessary for running WordPress, and every time you install WordPress, you create a new set of them, right? Which is one of the reasons why it's important to be very clear about your file structure, because the folders and files are all named exactly the same. So this is one of the reasons why I believe that it's best for you to keep, with the exception of your of the WordPress installation that is on your primary domain, all other domain files should exist in their own folder inside of the root of your web server. So if we had 10 other WordPress installs, there would be 10 other folders in here. Each one of them would contain all of the WordPress stuff. So in any case, that's what goes on here. Now, you've got this concept of the files for your primary WordPress domain are in the root of your web server, that is, they're in public HTML. The files for your other domains are in these directories that were created when we activated those domains, either when we made it an add-on domain or when we made it a subdomain. And WordPress has essentially two types of files. It has core files, and it has essentially customization files. Now, all of the core files are contained either outside of these two folders, like for example, WP Activate, WP Blog Header, WP Comments, WP Config, WP Cron. These are all core files that are in the root of the WordPress installation. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to finish my conversation about three types of roots. You have your hosting root, which is this home1BYOB root. You have your web server root, which is public HTML. And then you have your website roots. Notice the distinction between web server and website. The website root for Genesis Crash Course is this folder here. We are now in the root of genesiscrashcourse.com. Okay, the website root for lesson1.genesiscrashcourse.com is this folder called Lesson 1. And this is the website root for this website. Now, for byobbootcamp.com, that website root is the same as the server root in that all of its files start inside of public HTML. Okay, so just bear in mind that you have three types of root directories that you can be talking about when somebody says, well, go to your website root. Now, typically you're not actually interacting with this very much, but if you never get introduced to it, then when you see it, it can be confusing. Okay, so we've got our core files, which are these files here, plus everything inside of WP admin and everything inside of WP includes. You will never ever edit these files. Now there's one small exception. There may be reasons for you to edit WP config, but generally speaking, you will never edit a core file. If a file is ever edited, it's in WP content. And WP content is the folder where WordPress stores plugins and themes that you install. And typically, the only editing you will ever do to a file, well, typically you will never do any editing to a file, period. But if you're an advanced user, you may choose to edit some of your theme files. And if you did that, you would be doing that inside of this themes directory, inside of the theme file of the theme that you're using. But by and large, 95% of you, or 90% of you, or some very large percentage of you is never going to edit any of the files in WordPress. Now, if you have some web design experience and you are accustomed to creating websites using files, right, where you create a file for one page and you create a file for another page. That's not the way WordPress works. We'll show you how WordPress works, but WordPress saves all that content in a database. It never actually generates a file. So if you've got a page saying, you know, my favorite pet pictures, there's never a file called that anywhere, because WordPress doesn't work that way. All of that content is always stored inside of the database and is generated on the fly when it's requested. So, okay, that is the WordPress file structure.